Hello, everybody. Today we will be talking about bridging design and engineering, from flat design into practical design. If you've been working in software engineering company, you're probably familiar with a bit of communication problem between the designers and developers. Sometimes it's like a battlefield. You try to explain something, they try to explain something to you. It's a lot of tension. You act like you like each other, but not really. So, today, we are going to tell you a little bit about our pain points and how we're dealing with this. I can tell you that it's not always really nice and soft. So, we'll show you our bridge. So, my name is Nataliya, Hyvel. I'm from UI UX design field. And
I'm James Starr, and I'm a user experience engineer. You can find me on LinkedIn at James Starr.
So what is the flat design? If you could imagine, it's a simple design that you put together. You have your wireframes. You show it to your stakeholder. You test it with your user. You think you have it all great, lined up. Then you pass it on to developer. They put a bit of magic, and hopefully it's what you wanted. So what is a practical design?
Okay, so practical design is a change to the project delivery process, and that we strives and aims to build the right elements at the right time to fulfill the project scope.
That sounds pretty complicated. So what does it mean in reality? Imagine, that's what designer expects. A beautiful design, all put together. All the elements come in the right place, at the right spot. It will fly. It will be beautiful. That's what developer sees. Doesn't matter what color it is. It doesn't matter where it goes. It's just blah, blah, what designers said. And that's how the bad communication look like. That's still the same shape. Hopefully it will fly. You probably don't have enough time to iterate and change it. And that's what you need to deal with. So, how could it be different? Imagine, you would have a box with all the different elements in it. It's been already put together, so you know it's working. It will fit in the right place, in the right spot, and hopefully it will look like you wanted it. So,
what we talk about today, so we're going to be looking at three things today. The first is design versus engineering. The second is process. And the third is practical design and practice.
So, design versus engineering, our pain points, and finding the ways to communicate better. I will start with my design pain points. Communication, obviously, between design and developers. Sometimes we have different objectives. We want different things, and we speak in different language. Missing the process. When do we need actually to start talk? Sometimes you try to put it as far as possible and not even talk about it. And getting too deep into design without understanding the obstacles. Because you're saying, you don't want to hear that you can't really build it. So what is the engineering point?
Okay, so I have my own engineering pain points as well. I've got design collaboration, where Nataliya was saying that we're trying to figure out how to put this design together. We're trying to figure out how to build it and then deploy it. And then there's that missing pattern library, just a place where we can find our digital assets and to have a look, pull it out, and just to see what it looks like. The next thing is specifications for UX and UI, measurements, pixels, typography, and colors. And the last there is CSS. Now, CSS is a huge contributing pain point for the front-end engineer. Okay, so CSS is a style language, and it's short for cascading style sheets. Now, CSS starts easy, but becomes quite complex, especially for those growing products. The key factors of influence have been what we did really well in the past and what we didn't know in the present tense. So what I've seen from observation is that productivity slows down, your product will become harder to manage, and this collaboration between designers and engineers will continue to become an ongoing battle.
So, finding ways to communicate better, accepting the change, accepting the reality that you actually need to communicate, blending design and engineering, getting the developer early enough into your process, and process. So, how to bridge two disciplines together? Our initial process was pretty simple. You start with a concept and design. You work through your wireframes. You figure out how it works, if it works or not, go back and forth with the users and as well with the stakeholders. And then you just, when it's all agreed, pass it on to developer. They put a bit of magic and hopefully it works. So, over the wall communication, it's still, you don't know what you will get in the end.
We began to have a look at this process change. So we got together with our managers and our colleagues. We looked at what was this issue we were dealing with. What it came down to was actually setting up and defining a role called the UX engineer role. So we defined it, we set up the task, and then we took that person, we dropped them right in between design and development. In fact, we took a step further, and we put them right inside the design team. So now, engineer sat inside the design team. So we introduced UX engineering, prototyping and specifications that came along with it, but we ran into one final issue. When was the right time to do the handover from UX UI to UXE?
It wasn't that smooth, because if the developer comes into the designing team and tries to tell you what to do, it's not always easy. So that was another change. The loops of communication, feedbacks, and figuring out that you actually need to show what you're working on early enough that the developer know the strategic points and start to work on different elements. It doesn't mean that in the week or two it will not look completely different because you will iterate. But the elements, some of them will repeat. So that's where the change comes. So, practical design in practice. We will talk about the tools and how to implement it in your organization.
I'd like to have a quote here from Stephen Hay, which is, we're not designing pages, we're designing these systems of components. Which brings us down to tools. So we've had a look at process, we've had a look at practical design, and now we're looking at tools. So we finally settled on a tool called React Storybook. Now, React Storybook is a UI development environment. It's really out of the box, it runs right inside your project, and it helps you to give you a quick ability to prototyping, test interactivity and behavior, review data mockup, and best, this is where we store our practical designs. Here's an example of our storybook. So here we've got larger components, toasters, notifications, statuses, colors, typography, and all kinds of categories in which we've agreed on. And here we've got the smaller components, buttons and drop-downs and variations of those drop-downs. But if you look at them as Lego, building out to larger Lego sets, we're really talking still about the component. And so, folks, today, what I would like to take away today is how to implement practical design in your organization. There's 3 things you can take today. The first is the estimated time. The second is where to find the information. And the third is the achievable practical design goals. So for the first 2 weeks, it's the mental mind shift that you're going to start going down this process. The next 2 weeks after this, you're going to be starting to add some of these practical designs through the flow into your living app. 1 month, 2 months in, you're going to start to see some real results, and Nataliya will take you through that. There's 2 resources you can have a look at. You can have a look at in GitHub for React Storybook, download it and try it out. And the second is have a look at Google Jobs. They have a UX engineer role there. Now, we've adapted it to fit our agile environment, and you might do the same too. And the other thing is the achievable practical design goals. Start out with the smaller items, build out your typography and colors, then build up to buttons and drop-downs, and then add your specifications into that.
So, why to transit to practical design? You will get the maximum results within the limited time. So if you would imagine, you will have the system with all the little components that you can use it across your company. So for example, if you're building few products, you can reuse the components. And do you remember that pain point about the CSS? It becomes less. It's not that much of CSS. It's easier to maintain. You know exactly the number of components that you use in your product. So you can keep your design consistent and tailored for your solution. And it's more freedom to innovate. So the idea, if you will be asking why it's different from the pattern library, it would be because each of the elements you can test and see if it actually works for your design. So, sounds like a happy mission completed. Thank you.
Thank you.